Hey everyone, so today I wanted to talk to you guys about the 5 common types of narcissists that are out there. And I really wanted to take the time to define them and also give you some examples of how you're able to recognize this behavior and so you can notice some of these red flags. I think one of the things that we're not super great about on these platforms is we throw out a lot of terms, but we don't necessarily take the time to really define them and understand the meanings behind them. And I feel like this is important because if you don't know exactly what something is, it's hard to fight it or it's hard to overcome it if you're not knowing exactly what battle it is that you're fighting. So I hope this is educational for you guys. I know when I was doing this research, I learned a ton about it as well and was able to recognize some patterns that I'd seen from people in my life too. So the very first one that I want to talk about is what's called an overt narcissist. Now, this is going to be what we most likely hear on these social media platforms. It's most of the time what we think about when it comes to narcissism. It's this grandiose sense of self. They can be very outgoing. They're really good at having this representative in public where they're charming and people usually tend to like them if they're more in a surface level kind of relationship with them. They can be very entitled though. They can be very overbearing. So it's kind of one of those people that they consume the conversation. Everything has to be turned back into them, or they're just sitting there waiting for you to stop talking so they can just twist the conversation back to what they did that day or just some random story from their past. They can also just have this very exaggerated self-image, and they also need that. Part of the form of supply that they need is to have that praise and to have that admiration. They really need to be adored. They can also be very competitive, and of course, like we know about narcissists in general, they have a severe lack of empathy because in their mind, everyone is beneath them. You might notice that these people are very rude to wait staff, or they might be very rude to people in the customer service industry because they genuinely have this mindset that people are beneath them. The next one we're going to talk about is covert narcissist. In my opinion, I think this term is the term that is most commonly misused. Oftentimes, I think people describe a covert narcissist in an overt definition, and that's actually not how it goes. So covert narcissism, the other term that most of the research describes this as, is a vulnerable narcissist, because these individuals, they actually have a very low self-esteem. These are going to be the ones that always have the victim mindset. They were always the one that was screwed over. Everybody in their life is a narcissist. Everybody's been out to get them. They feed you that Sally sob story. And in my opinion, I think these are the ones that are really good about when they're demonizing their exes or they're demonizing certain people, that's actually their form of a confession because they're taking what they've done to other people, twisting it, and turning themselves into a victim. Again, like I said, they're extremely insecure, they have low confidence, they're defensive, and they're also probably the ones that actually have more of a higher tendency to deal with things like depression and to deal with things like shame. They actually are able to feel these things, but instead of dealing with those, they just play the victim and make excuses for their behavior. So the next one we're going to talk about is an antagonistic narcissist. Now, it's been said that sometimes antagonistic narcissist is considered a subtype of overt narcissism because they both do have this arrogance about themselves, and there is a sense of competition in both categories. But this one, there's a higher emphasis on the competition side of things, and they also are more prone, again, to take advantage of other people and just very prone to arguing and having these disagreements because, again, they're always right. But I believe that I dealt with someone in this category in one of my past jobs. So I'll kind of give you this example. I used to work for this one manager. I was the assistant manager. And while I worked in their location, we were essentially best friends. We talked all the time, inside of work, outside of work. And we had a really great working relationship for essentially 9 months, the entire time that I worked for them. And the reason why is because I wasn't in direct competition with them. I actually really benefited them because since we were very sales-driven in our job, they bonused off of my productivity because they bonused off the productivity of the entire store. Well, since I had really good numbers, I was probably the person that could get as close to my manager's numbers as possible out of the entire company. It made her look good. Well, the moment that I got promoted and moved to another store, our entire relationship changed and the whole dynamic of our relationship changed because now I'm not benefiting her. Now, in her mind, I'm actually competing against her and I'm threatening her stardom in the company. So there were instances where she was like trying to turn some of my coworkers against me. She was starting rumors with the owner of the company saying that I was bad-mouthing her and that I was starting rumors in general, because I never used to hear from the owner of our company about complaints or anything like that. All of a sudden, as soon as I have this like management role, it's like I'm getting phone calls like every other week, like, so it's been reported that you started this rumor. It's been reported that you've done this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, check the cameras. Like, this is not going on. And come to find out, it was actually all coming from my old manager. And again, it's because they were doing whatever they could to keep that star focus put back on them. Next is going to be something called a communal narcissist. Probably haven't heard about this one because this one's not talked about a lot, but this is going to be someone that actually presents themselves almost polar opposite of an antagonistic narcissist. So this is someone that's actually going to present themselves as very altruistic, that they get really angry when like moral injustices happen, or they present themselves as like empathetic or like generous towards people, and they just get really mad when they see someone being treated unfairly. But the funny thing is that it's with people outside of their immediate circle. So like things they see on the news, or if they like see someone being bullied or something like on a TikTok video or like whatever, like they get really outraged about this kind of stuff. So an example of this might be someone who actually, unfortunately, is a social media influencer that's putting all this content out there about like being your best self and treating other people fairly and how equal rights and all this and all that. But what they're doing to the people in their immediate circle is everything that we think about when it comes to narcissism. It's all about them. Everything has to be their way or the highway. They gaslight people, they manipulate people. So there's this huge gap from how they present themselves to the public versus how they treat themselves. And the reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to gain this social power, and they're trying to gain this like sense of self-importance. They're playing this like role of an advocate to society. And the last one that we'll talk about is what's called malignant narcissist. This one you've probably heard of because these are the individuals that not only is their narcissism very severe, a lot of malignant narcissists can actually be very dangerous. These are the ones that are, and instead of just having this like grandiose sense of self and this like strong need to be adored, these guys can actually be very vindictive. They can also be borderline or just straight up sadistic, to where they actually get pleasure and they get fulfillment out of causing pain to other people, whether it's physically or emotionally. I've done some research on this on my own, and a lot of times malignant narcissists are the ones that are more highly associated with the ones that get into legal trouble, or when it comes to physical abuse and that kind of stuff. So these are the guys that they can be very aggressive, and again, they can be very dangerous. So I hope that you guys were able to gain at least a little bit of clarity on the different types of narcissism and how to spot them and to see the red flags in this. I'm a true believer that the more that we know about this, the more that we're able to potentially understand the experiences that we've been through, because if we can understand it, then we're able to bring a little bit of logic to a very illogical situation. And even though it doesn't excuse the behavior, at least we can get to this point where we understand this is just who this individual is. Nothing I could have done could have prevented their actions. It wouldn't have mattered if I was the absolute 100% perfect partner. They were still going to treat me the way that they did because this is just who they are. But also, more importantly, I hope knowing that these different types and seeing these different signs can help you avoid them in the future, especially in platonic or romantic relationships. But if you also are able to recognize this in situations like your coworker environment, now's where you start to learn, like, okay, if this is how they are, now I need to learn how to interact with them to keep myself emotionally safe and even potentially physically safe, and also to keep my job safe as well, knowing how to interact with these kind of people. So again, I hope you guys were able to take something from this. Make sure you're subscribing to my channel, and also make sure you're following me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks guys for watching.